Globespan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion with the pros, the cons, the ones that have taken a side, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globespan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation building. Globespan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation building. As we span the globe for voices from the diaspora and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana. This land is our land now. As the world turns on its axis, bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adapt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globespan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all fellow Guyanese. Welcome again to one of Globespan program, our Wednesday night program, as we continue on our Wednesday with Globespan247.com. While I'm making this announcement, I would like to invite all of you to do share the program. Also, if you're on YouTube, subscribe so you will be notified as soon as a program commences with Globespan. Globespan 24/7 is a platform. It's been in for 6 years, offering a community service for all voices. The platform invites all political parties, civil and religious leaders to share their opinion and address their concerns. You can contact Globespan 24/7 by calling 631-782-8694, or you could email us support@globespan24x7.com. My fellow Guyanese, this evening we continue with our topic, State of Affairs as it is leading into election. We have tonight a very distinguished guest, one who has really been around long before we were probably in short pants, Professor Paul Nehru Tennessee, the former leader of DLM, and now the executive of the Roraima Institute. And by the way, if you want to reach Roraima Institute, the email is triguyana@yahoo.com. Our second guest tonight is Mr. Floyd Haynes, a CPA. He's also the chairman and CEO of New Haven Bank. He's also a part of the CPA firm, Ramsey Allen Haynes, and this is the firm that was auditing the ExxonMobil venture in Guyana on their expenses and income as it relates to our oil and gas industry. So I would like to welcome these two distinguished gentlemen, and I want to start tonight with the youngest out of the two to commence this program, no other than Professor Paul Tennessee. Professor, if you could just take a couple of minutes, background on yourself, and surely you would like to mention about the Roraima Institute.
Well, I'll leave the Roraima Institute for when the program is ending. If you give me a chance, I would love to say a few words about it. But for now, as we are on the Roraima Institute, I'm the executive director, and it was founded by Mr. Floyd Haynes and myself. And we did that after the 50th anniversary of Guyana political independence. We convoked a big conference at the University of District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., to examine the issues in Guyana. And after that, we decided to launch the Roraima Institute, which is a think tank. But Mr. Haynes currently is the head of the New Haven Bank in Guyana. It's a merchant bank, an investment bank. He also is a CPA. He's the head of a company here in America for years. And so his hands are really filled with a lot of things. He's given us extraordinary leadership. We did a lot of things. At the end of the program, I'll tell you what you did, what we did, and I'll make a call to Guyanese to join us, both Guyanese at home and abroad, because we are reorganizing the Roraima Institute. But Mr. Haynes will now no longer be chair of the board, and we are now regrouping and reorganizing the board and so forth. So much for the institute. Now, regarding myself and the subject that we have today, I could say that I looked at a lot of elections. My first election was 1953. I was 6 years old. I heard Peter de Geer's father speak in James Street, Alberstown. And I was there when the British invaded. And when the party was split in 1953, Janet Jagan came to our shop under Dr. Lachmanson with an American accent. She said, Marjorie, that's my mother. Where is Patrick? Tell him not to go to those other people meeting. Go to Cherry's meeting. And that was a division of the PPP. And I witnessed the 57 elections as an older guy on the quarantine with my aunt Enid de Groot looking through the window and see Cheddy Jagan victoriously rolling on a open car with his malas that he won the elections. I didn't get involved in the 61 election, but I was a secretary of a political party's youth movement in 64. And then I led a political movement in the 85 and 92 elections. And I've written extensively of all the elections from 1968 to 2020. Both Floyd and I were in Guyana during the few months that we had the hocus pocus problems with the elections of 2020. So I would say I have a lot of knowledge about elections. And so
Thank
elections
you.
are on now in Guyana. And the first thing I'd like to say, Guyanese now have elections fever.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for that opening. And Mr. Haynes, you've been settling also in the United States. You have a successful business here, and you have chosen to return back to Guyana to contribute your expertise, your knowledge, your experiences, and in key areas, rather. One is the Merchant Bank, New Haven Bank, and also the CPA firm that I mentioned in the opening remarks. So, Mr. Floyd Haynes, give us a few minutes and tell us a little about the New Haven Bank and some of the contributions you're making to the Guyanese economy and to the Guyanese people.
Thank you very much, Nohar, Professor Tennessee. It's always good to see you. Several years ago, I came back to Guyana just to explore the possibilities of working in Guyana. At the time, the previous administration was in power. I worked closely with some of the ministers in that administration. Fast forward, new administration came to power, and I just started to think seriously about what I wanted to do. And one of the things that was clear to me is that there is a huge capital gap between where the country is and where the country needed to be. In other words, there isn't sufficient capital or money in the country to finance the transformation and development of Guyana. And therefore, I thought that that was a gap that I can fill given my finance and accounting background. And so I decided to apply for a license to start a merchant bank or an investment bank. It's a non-deposit taking institution that's primarily focused on crowding in or bringing much needed capital to help local businesses grow and expand and scale and start up and to provide working capital for businesses. And we have done that successfully. Last year, I think, raised closed about 11 billion GYD, which is about 60 to 70 million US dollars we were able to bring to businesses in country across various industries, mining, construction, oil and gas, and a few others. We were also managed to give out successfully some small business loans to businesses that are just getting started in the oil and gas. This year, we're on track to do better. And so we're excited about it.
Good, good, good. Thank you, Floyd. And just quickly for the viewers to understand, New Haven Bank is a merchant bank. It's not a commercial bank where they're taking deposits, open checking accounts, etc. They are a facilitator between funding and the projects itself. So if you have a project or you're heading to Guyana to start a business, you have construction, you're looking to raise capital. Mr. Haynes, is it all debt capital or equity, or do you do
No,
both?
it's so what I like to say, people have heard me say this, we don't make loans, we make investments. We invest in businesses, and that investment can take several forms. It could be all debt, which is not our preference. That would be what you would call a loan. Typically, if you're looking for a loan, your best bet is to probably to go to one of the commercial or retail banks and apply for a loan. And depending on the project, you may or may not get it financed. We prefer to take a holistic approach where we look at the business as a whole, and if possible, to take some equity in that business. So along with the equity will come expertise. We bring financial expertise, management expertise, marketing expertise, all of the necessary tools that would allow that business to thrive and grow. And with the idea of growing the business large enough where we can then exit, so that the owners or the sponsors of that project have a chance to buy us out. So we prefer to do equity. We've done both debt and equity, and sometimes a combination of both.
Good, good. So viewers, once again, the bank is New Haven Bank. Mr. Floyd Haynes, the CEO and owner, also the chairman of the bank. Floyd, could you just take a couple of minutes and tell us about your experience in auditing Exxon? That's a hot topic. It's been in the media every
It's
week.
indeed a
So
hot
please,
topic.
yeah.
We were several years ago, I don't remember, the vice president called in a group of accountants. Christopher Ram was part of that team, by the way. Chris, one of the Guyanese famous and well, very knowledgeable accountant, the one with whom I have a lot of respect for, although sometimes we disagree in certain things. Chris is extremely talented. But anyhow, Chris was part of that group, and the whole idea was to convene a group of local Guyanese with the necessary experience to put together a team to do the audit. Chris later left the group. I was put in charge of the group, and I put together a team, a multidisciplinary team of lawyers, petroleum engineers, accountants, and management consultants. And we did the first audit, which was, I think, 2018 to 21, 2018 to 20. 18, 19, and 20, the years 18 and 19 and 20. We did that audit, and we are just completing the second audit, which is 21, 22, and 23. Once that audit has been submitted to the government and accepted, we will be pretty close to being current. But again, I was put in charge of the audit. I put together the team. Nobody questioned me, told me how to put it together, asked me what I was doing. They just said, Floyd, go out and get it done. I recruited a group of locals to work with me, and we became what is now known as VHE Consulting. That's the local component. And then I brought in the foreign components, Martindale and Company from out of the US, Squire Boggs out of the UK brought the legal arm, and then we brought in a Norwegian group that brought the petroleum engineering, and that sort of complete the necessary discipline that was required to perform that type of audit. So we've completed the draft report, we've submitted it to the ministry, and from here on, there will be a set of meetings between us, the ministry, and ExxonMobil. And then once that's done, we'll pretty much close to be current.
Well, that's good. Good, Mr.
$19
Floyd
billion
Haynes.
worth we audited over the 3 years.
Wow.
19.
Quite a success story, and I'm sure the viewers probably have a lot of questions, but that would be for another night. They all now want to be much more engaged on the election path, where we at, state of affairs. Professor, for the past several weeks at Globespan, we have been talking about the change of the political landscape, if there are such evidence or there are some sort of a light that's coming through in the changes that we are seeing. And I'm speaking specifically about some of the rallies we are seeing with the PPP, with WIN, and of course with APNU, particularly with the PPP and with WIN. We are seeing more of a mixture of Afro-Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese. Of course, the indigenous people are playing a much more major role now in voting than any time before. Do you see, Professor, from your knowledge, from your experience being a veteran in the political arena, are you seeing a change in our political landscape?
Well, I wear many hats currently, and for October will be 20 years since I'm teaching at the University of District of Columbia. So I've been here in Guyana, but I go in United States and Washington, D.C. But and I'm an educator, and I've always been, whether it was a labor education, academic education. Basically, elections come and go. Guyana will survive every election. We've had a lot of elections. We had good elections, bad elections, all kind of elections. Guyanese love elections, as I said. We have election fever. I have Guyanese fever. I say Guyana is my first love. Floyd said that at the opening of his bank too. So what is happening now in Guyana, I don't see it as any extraordinary new change. And what we have in history is continuity and change. We have symbolic change and we have real change. So what I see is that we had about 20-something people saying they're going to run for elections. I don't know if they were joking or they're political comedians, but we ended up with only 6 political parties. We used to have a show called Ling Show. We used to make jokes about elections. They put me on the Ling Show because I offered in 1985 that I will bring back sardine and I will bring back curry powder and roti and so on and so forth. So I think we need another Link Show with some of these guys. I don't know how they get the idea that they should run for election, but they disappear. Now there are 6 parties running. But you are correct. When we look at the media, and I talk to my extensive contacts in Guyana, and I do have a lot, we see that 3 parties have crowds. The PNC, which have a new name, APNU, the WIN, which is supposed to be a new party, about 2 or 3 months old, and we now have the PPP, of course, which is the red shirts, the blue shirts, and the green shirts. It's like Thailand now. We have a lot of shirts. We have a lot of shirts. All right. So the thing is that September 1st will tell us who will win. I always, I have Basil Pandey. He and I were very close in the union movement and the political movement. I helped him launch the United National Congress. Old Pandey used to tell me always, and I know Harry is your good friend, very, very good friend. Pandey said, boy, you could get crowds at all them elections, all them meetings, but you win the election on the day of election. You better get polling agents there, and you better get vehicles to bring the people there and get them food to make sure that they go and vote. So let's see what will happen on the day of election. But I like the fun. I like seeing the crowds. Guyanese are very happy. Everybody I see in the crowd look very, very happy. They all have a shirt and they are excited about the elections. So we'll see what the results are. I don't see any fundamental change will come about. There are 2 views that I heard. Some people are saying there'll be a minority government, and some people are saying there'll be a majority government. But I have not been on the ground. I have not done a poll. I've not done listening interviews. So I'm not in a position to make that kind of prediction. But you have a very good point. The audiences that we have been seeing is multi-ethnic. The leadership has been multi-ethnic. So that's a good sign because we have the perpetual problem of the race issue, the poverty issue, and some problems that we face since in colonial times. We still face them today. So I'm happy that we have elections. I believe the elections would be free and fair because we have the OAS is going to be monitoring the elections. The Carter Center will be monitoring elections. And in 1992, the Carter Center played a major role in the transition from not free and fair elections to free and fair elections. So I'm very optimistic that the elections would be free and fair. I'm very optimistic that 1 or 2 or 3 parties, at least 3 parties may do very well in the elections, and one will do better than the other 2, and
Thank you, Professor.
Better than the third.
Thank you very much. So, Floyd, I want to keep on that positive note that the ending part of Professor's comment is that yes, there seems to be some encouragement. Yes, it seems to me like it seems as if we are moving away from race-basing voting. I mean, as I think most Guyanese, particularly those living in the diaspora, they're looking for changes in Guyana. They want to see a country to move forward without us being stuck in this sort of perpetual, what I would say, a perpetual sort of stagnation, suppression. Guyanese have not been happy for since independence. So staying with that positive aspect of visibility into the type of crowd, what would be your comments, Floyd?
Well, one of the things that I'm happy to see is that I've been on the ground here, and one of the things I've observed is that the crowd has been for the most part, multi-ethnic in nature amongst all the parties. And so you have a mixture of various races supporting each of the party. That is a good thing. Freedom to choose is a natural right, and we should encourage that. The parties and the candidates running for office have to win votes in the theater of ideas. They have to be able to convince the people whose votes they're trying to get that they have the best ideas to move the country forward. To the extent you can do that, I think you will be victorious. But the mere fact that we have multi-ethnic support across the board for all parties is a good thing. And I know some have criticized that, and I find that a sad commentary, because people should be allowed to support whomever they choose. For me, and I'll make this very short, I think one of the things we tend to do, and Professor Tennessee have heard me say this repeatedly, we tend to focus on the leader, and we talk about the leader of the list, leader of this, leader of that. I find it more useful to focus on leadership as opposed to leader. And leadership, it's an activity. It's something you do, right? A leader can be elected, appointed, nominated, what have you. It's a position of authority. But leadership is doing the hard work, the adaptive work of closing the gap between the challenges the people face on the one hand. So meeting the people where they are and closing that gap between where they are and where they want to go, their aspirations. And that is hard work. And too often, we offer simple solutions to very complex problems, and that doesn't work. So I tend to look for leadership. And so my advice to voters as they go to the polls is ask yourself, who is exercising that type of leadership rather than who is a leader? And based on that, make your decision. If you just go for a personality or whatnot, or, you're going to probably make the wrong choice, have buyer's remorse, what have you. But if you look for someone that's exercising leadership, I think more than likely you'll probably make the right choice.
Thank you for that, Floyd. And I suppose a lot has been happening in all three major political parties. There are a few other smaller ones that are also trying to galvanize. In the state of affairs, though, what would be your opinion on AFC at this stage of the game from what you're seeing on the ground?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, Nohar, you can't really. I don't know. I'm not the best person, but I'll say this: it's hard to make those determination based on crowd size at a moment in time. I think it's a little bit more. If you were to just do that, you would eliminate most parties. So I don't really know. I know all of the candidates, I would say personally. So I don't want to pronounce on any one or the other, but I don't know. Paul may have a better sense of where those groups. I haven't spoken to any of these individuals because, again, it's political season. They have to win the hearts and minds of the voters with their ideas.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Issues. And Professor, you have been through all of it. Your experience on the democratic labor movement in Guyana. You walk the streets, you walk the pavement, you were boots on the ground. You know the political landscape better than any of us here. I want to ask you this. You've went through quite a bit. A question that was just texted to me, so to pose the question regarding the news article today that Demerara Bank is now canceling uh, the accounts for some of the members of WIN. Are you familiar with that? And what would, if you are, any comments on it?
Before I answer that, if may I crave your indulgence and follow up on Floyd about AFC? Uh, I led a small group and with the Roraima Institute the year after AP and UAFC won the elections. And I did listening interviews in 5 regions. And we documented what we heard people said and we presented it in Georgetown to a public gathering. And since then, we recognize in that report that the AFC was losing ground. And finally, they lost ground. I don't believe the AFC is in this race as a big winner. They will have to struggle very, very hard. Up to today, I spoke to a leading light in the AFC. And they're telling me that they're going to have to struggle very hard to keep one single seat. It was a strategic error that they did not successfully have a coalition with the PNC or the APNU because they cannot make it. Their record is abysmal and they are not going to be able to do it. I think the people who will come in with seats will be definitely the PPP, the PNC, APNU, and it looks from the reports we have been seeing with the crowds that have been turning up with the new party called WIN, that if those people who turned up go and vote, they likely will come into some seats. How many, I don't know. But that is what I believe on that score. Now, your question now is about, what was it again? So, because I got caught up in my thoughts.
Sanctioning of some of the supporters of Mr. Mohammed by Demerara.
Oh, yeah, I read it today in the Stabrook News. I read it today in the Stabrook News. I don't know whether it's true, whether it's false. I'm not in Guyana. I don't have the records. Mr. Mohammed evidently is in the center of a controversy, himself and his dad, about a report that became public about the American government on this family and their financial transactions. And then there's a problem with the government. Everybody knows about taxes and vehicle and so forth. Now, what I do know is that the United States government, quite recently, Secretary of State Rubio said that instructions have gone out to all the embassies across the world that they should not comment on whether elections are free and fair in any country. Your interest at the embassy is to serve the interests of the United States of America. So we are living in a different time where we have to swim or sink when it comes to free and fair elections. Now, if any discriminatory action is being carried out against people because of their political leanings, I would be absolutely against it. I will speak out against it because I do not agree with that, because I was a victim of that for many, many years. Until now, I'm working 20 years at the University of District of Columbia because I was denied the right to work at the University of Guyana in 1982. I stayed on and I fought until we got free and fair elections. And then in 1992, I reapplied for my job under the new government and I couldn't work, even though I was raising funds independently to work at the University of Guyana. So when you talk about discrimination, I know about it. So I would not tolerate, and I will speak out against anything if I have the evidence. Until then, I cannot speak about it. I do know the head of DDL. I know him very well. Up to recently, a couple of months ago, he was in Washington, D.C. When I go to Guyana next, I'll talk to him seriously if what has happened is true, because that would be terrible if that happens. It's not good for Floyd is an expert on why people come and invest in a country. If that is true, then it would be bad for business in general.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope it's not true. And I hope the powers that be, the leadership of that bank, will publicly come out and address that issue and make it clear whether it's facts or fiction. It's in the hands of the heads of that bank. It is their responsibility. They owe it to the Guyanese people at home and abroad and the international community to come out and state very clearly if that allegation is based on facts or fiction. I'm sure you'll agree with that, Nohar. You would like the
Absolutely.
bank leadership speak on this.
Absolutely.
I'm not talking of political leadership here, the bank leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, Floyd, I just want to park quite a few of the comments the professor made there and just want to appeal to you. You're new blood. You come from international experience at the highest level. You've sat with presidents, prime ministers. You've seen the countries around us in the Caribbean, in the Caricom. And I just want to point out recently, Suriname was sworn in as a coalition government. The UNC won with a very big margin of seats in Trinidad and Tobago because mainly the PNM supporters, mostly Afro-Trinidadians, stayed away from the polls. Mainly they were not happy in the way the government was going. To the point I'm trying to make to you, Floyd, is that we have been in this situation from since the inception of independence. You're seeing the crowds. The crowds are mixture, which is a good sign for our country. People are starting to look at issues. They're crossing the race barrier. You've seen a much more younger crowd. Now, if you take all of that into the context and go back to Professor Paul Tennessee comments of discrimination, of pressures coming in, and this is not about win, but this is about our future generation. It does discourage a young person to get into the political scene to try to make a change if they have a conviction and a vision for Guyana. So you having all this experience, this knowledge, a very successful businessman, what would be your comments about what's happening there and some sort of an encouragement as well to new political actors that probably want to come into the space?
I don't know. I don't have any of the evidence. And I don't know that the Demer Bank has targeted Mr. Mohammed or his people specifically or unfairly. If they have done that, then that is wrong, and I would not condone any such thing. On the other hand, Demerara Bank is a private enterprise. They have to do what they perceive is in their best interests. They have to weigh the facts and circumstances and then make a decision that is in the best interest of the bank. It's the way the free market works. In making that call, they have to be cognizant of the reaction of the general public. And if they're making the wrong call, then the public will react. But I'm not in favor of telling a private enterprise who they should and should not do business with. So in that sense, I'm not so sure what is unfair. I don't know what they have done, and B, what is unfair about it. This is not, it's a private enterprise, and they're making, I believe, or I'm hoping, a decision that they think it's in their best interest. I don't see anything wrong with that, to be quite honest.
I'm sure, though, Floyd, you would agree, or I don't want to say you will, but in the context of our new political space, new entrance into it, discriminations or additional pressures on these new actors, this is not something that our generation should, we should be encouraging more people to come into the political space.
Absolutely. I would not support discrimination of any kind, of anyone. And wherever I see it happening, I will speak it. I'll be the first to cry from the rooftop. I would not support it. But I am not so sure that anyone has convinced me that this is discrimination other than a private enterprise making a business decision, having weighed the pros and cons that they think it's in their best interest. If there is evidence to the contrary, I'd be happy to address it, but I have seen none.
Point taken, point taken. So, our dear Guyanese brothers and sisters, I'd like to make another announcement. We're asking to help us at Globespan to achieve our goals and vision, to help build a society that is much more informed from all sides, a society where one can change from within so as to affect changes on the outside, a society that can reason together, and a society that can work to keep hope alive. Our vision is a country where the moral and ethical compass are directed by the Word of God. Help build a Guyana where all Afro, Indo-Amerindians, and all other races value each other as equal human beings. Imagine a Guyana where her wealth becomes your wealth. So my fellow Guyanese brothers and sisters, we are asking you to join Globespan 24/7 in these initiatives so that we can be able to be everyone in the society could be much more informed. Professor Paul Tennessee, where do you see us on the moral and ethical scale in Guyana from 1 to 10? Would you like to make some comments on that?
Well, yes, of course. The first point I want to make, Nohar, is that Guyana has all the problems that exist in America and every country around the world. The good and the bad and the ugly in every country is globalized. The question is how we as Guyanese will address our issues. Not because corruption or poverty exists in other countries, that therefore it justifies us having it in Guyana. You know, I want to make this statement that years ago, when I was in the politics, the brother of the foreign minister of Portugal worked with my wife, who's a medical doctor at the Pan American Health Organization, and he visited Guyana. So you know I was involved in the politics. He liked politics. So he came to me and he said, Paul, I want to go to hear one of your public meetings. So I took him to Leonora and I made a speech. And I said, God give us gold, God give us timber, God give us this, God give us that. But God made one mistake. He put the PNC there and we have a dictatorship. And after the meeting, the gentleman said to me, he said, Paul, you did a good speech, but you make one mistake. Never go and tell the people that God made a mistake. God don't make mistakes. So what I'd like to say to you, I'd like to say to the Guyanese people, and as far as I'm concerned, I have only one boss, God. God don't make mistakes. We make the mistakes. Throughout our history, I said continuity. One of the things that has been continuous in conquest, slavery, indentureship, 20th century colonialism, post-colonialism, is Guyanese want a fair share, and they want those who govern have clean hands. Do not use public office for private gain. God, Lord Almighty, this has happened in every government in every part of the world, but it doesn't have to happen in Guyana. Now we have enough wealth in order that everybody could have a fair share. So what I'm concerned about is not so much who will win or lose the elections on September 4th. I want to know what will happen beyond September 4th, 2nd, and 3rd about fair share, clean hands, about building institutions in Guyana. And I think it's very important. Guyanese always loved freedom. They always wanted to elect and recall a government in verifiable, free, and fair election. They love it. Even in the worst fraudulent election, they will go to the polls and vote. They believe in freedom. They want to know who is governing, is accountable to them, is transparent. Now, I believe that Floyd spoke about leader leadership, and so forth. I had a very good friend. I'm the historian for the only African-American labor union in America, the Black Postal Workers. And my friend James McGee, when he and I would have a glass of wine for happy hour after work at 5 o'clock, you know, once he told me, we were speaking about leadership, he said, Paul, there is the leader, a leader. You know, he made a distinction like Floyd about the leader and a leader. But Floyd is right. When he's speaking of leadership, I think what Floyd is saying implicitly is that we need ethical, moral, and a spiritual basis for society. Now, where do those values reside? They reside in the interfaith. They reside in the religions of the world. In Guyana, we have been fortunate. We have Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and other religions. Now, where is the interfaith leadership? I think we have fallen down very badly in Guyana, where I don't hear the voices of the interfaith leadership about Guyanese society having an ethical, moral, and spiritual base. Guyana is a very breakdown society. We are aware of that. I look at the indicators, like today, somebody sent me an article where they said people are dying, 40% on the road. And the reason for it is alcohol consumption. Young people are dying. And they did a cost-benefit analysis. 857 million, 198 million, 160 million, 653 million Guyana dollars it's costing with the deaths of these young people on the roads. So we have a lot of issues in Guyana, alcoholism, suicide, and so on and so forth. Now we have to address these issues. And I am looking forward, and I'm hoping through the Roraima Institute that we will advocate and encourage Guyanese. That only the Guyanese people can save the Guyanese people, but we have to build a new leadership of Guyanese from below who will take responsibility. It's very difficult for the people who govern to be able to follow ethical, moral, and spiritual being. You know why it's difficult? Because power does a hell of a lot of things to people's brains, and they make a lot of money when they are in office. So it's easier for the people below. And I would like to see more interfaith, religious leadership intervention to advocate and call on the people of Guyana and work with them to have a more ethical, moral, and spiritual basis. It's not only Guyana. If you look at the state of the world today, it's lacking. Countries have lost their compass. And this is both individual and collective. We all have a responsibility. I have to try. You have to try. Floyd has to try. He's a businessman, but he also have to embrace the ethical, moral, and spiritual. And I'm sure he agrees with that because, you know,
Thank you,
Floyd has
Professor.
been doing business in Guyana. He's not engaged in any form of corruption. He's put his own money, he's invested, and he's following the laws of Guyana, and he set up his bank. And,
Thank
and,
you.
and we need businesses, the private sector to do that. We need the public sector to do that. Roraima Institute will be working on something called an oath for those who have public office, both public civil servants and political leadership.
Thank you,
We did
Professor.
an oath for citizen diplomats.
Yeah.
You oath how you will not use public office for private gain. We could start with something like that, and the people can demand that at the local, national, at all the tables of governance.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. And that's quite a lot you said there. Mr. Floyd Haynes, would you care to add to that? Any vision? We try to keep hope alive in this program. We want to be able to give our Guyanese people hope. So, any comments to add on what Professor Paul Tennessee just mentioned?
No, I think Paul is definitely he's on the right track when I discuss leadership. Of course, transformation, ethical and moral transformation. Leadership must elevate. That's one of the things that we look for. But let me just say this. His Excellency, Dr. Ali, has a record. He's been president for the last 5 years. Undeniably, he has done a lot. It's out there for everyone to see. Guyanese have to ask themselves if they're satisfied with President Ali's record, and are they willing to give him another shot at it? That is the test. Those who are trying to unseat Dr. Ali must present a case, a compelling case, that they can do a better job. And that's what it boils down to in the end. Again, it's the market of free ideas. I don't particularly like when we start to get into the personal attacks, the vitriol, rage. You know, there is a distinction between rage on the one hand and outrage. You can be outraged about something. It is constructive, and being outraged can lead to solutions. Rage is violent and anger, and it's destructive. And so I think we must distinguish between the two. But in the final analysis, His Excellency Dr. Ali has a record. It's out there for all to see and evaluate. And the question on the voters' minds should be whether or not Dr. Ali's work deserves another 5 years. And the folks running to unseat Dr. Ali must make a clear and compelling case that they can do a better job. And that's what it comes down to. And I hope with that in mind, people can go to the polls and make their decisions based on some kind of a comprehensive analysis on how they see the country, where they are today, where they were 5 years ago, and where they hope to be 5 years from now. All things factored in.
Thank you. And Floyd, on that note there from Professor Paul Tennessee, when he talks about fair share, clean hands, etc., I want to go to a video where we extrapolate an article from Kaito News on cost of living. And I think that dovetails right back into fair share. So Devin, do you have that video?
In Kayatur News' lead article yesterday reported that poor Guyanese who do their shopping at the Borda and Stabroek markets paid significantly more for some of the everyday food items than they did just 3 years ago, as prices for meats, vegetables, and seasonings continue to rise. High cost of living has been suffocating citizens for over 2 years now. The small money that citizens have in their hands buys less and less when they go shopping. Shopping for essentials, especially food and medicines, can be a parent's worst nightmare, a state of intensifying fearfulness since higher prices could be what awaits have to be paid. Article taken from Kayatur News.
And Devin, if you could pull up that Excel, I just want to ask Floyd Haynes to let's walk through this together. Floyd, just as a background, the budget from 2021, I think that's when oil started to hit the bank accounts. From 2021, it was 383 billion. It moved up to 1.146 trillion in 2024. Accumulative from 2021 to 2024, accumulative, Floyd, is over $2.5 trillion, which is basically a 200% increase from 2021. But I just want to go to this spreadsheet with you, Floyd. You're a CPA, your numbers guy. Let's take, for example, the sector that's been in the news most frequently, the teachers. An average salary of 150,000. Devin, could you throw that on the Excel? 150,000 average. I believe Floyd in the news, I seen one article says a 10% increase, the other says it's about a 12% increase. Let's use the number 12% increase of $150,000 on a monthly basis for one of our greatest assets. Our teachers are one of our greatest assets in our country. So 12% of $150,000, how much is that, Devin? That's $18,000. And Floyd, if we to deduct, I believe the income tax is averaging about 25%. Could we deduct 25% from tax on that?
Isn't there a minimum threshold below which there is no PAYE, correct? In other words, if you're making
130,000, I believe.
It's 130. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 130. That's why I'm taking in the 25% because I'm using an average of $150,000. So
Okay.
that's $4,500 off of $18,000 increase on a monthly basis. That takes us down to, I believe, 13,500. Now, if we are to factor in inflation into that, Floyd, I don't understand what is the real inflation rate because World Bank is saying it's 2 point something. Uh, People going shopping is saying it's the numbers are skyrocketed. Do you have a
Skyrocketed.
clue what that inflation rate is?
Not a clue, right? But it's not 2%. It's
Definitely cannot be
no,
2%, cannot be
it's
5%. Would it be
10%,
fair to say
9%.
10% inflation?
Yeah, somewhere there in the
Devon,
neighborhood.
10% inflation rate and that 18,000? That's $1,800, right? And then we to take 12% VAT on all expenditure of that 18,000. 12% of 18,000, Devon. Professor, bear with me here. I'm just trying to.
No, I'm looking at it. I'll give an opinion
This
about
dovetails back to your comment of fair share, right?
that.
So accumulative between the 25%, 10%, and 12%, Devon. What's the total on that? And minus that from the 18,000. So the total increase on a monthly basis after you take out tax, inflation, and VAT is about 10,000, $9,540 a month. Now divide that, Devon, by 4.25 weeks. So per week, the actual increase is 2,244. And divide that, Devon, by 210, just to get the US dollar equivalence of it. $10.69 per week. Floyd, my brother, my brother, my brother. You're a numbers guy. You're a businessman, international businessman, successful in the United States, successful in Guyana. On a budget of that is basically 200% from the point of oil infusion to 2024. My God, Floyd, how can anyone, and this is happening with the teachers. Now, if you go to the police department or most public servants, the type of salary they are making are not consistent to what we are seeing in the expansion of the roads and the bridges and all the infrastructure. The infrastructure is just not there for them, and that's where the sentiments are coming in. So in looking at those numbers, Floyd, what would you say? I mean, any comments on it? And
No, it's hard, no hard. That's not how I do numbers. That's an isolated case, and it's probably true. I don't know enough about the source of. You see, it's very difficult to pull something out of a large budget and to zero in on it because you can come out one way or the other. So I wouldn't be doing the budget preparers justice, nor would I be doing the teachers justice. I'm not trying to dodge the question. For me to make a proper analysis, I have to have a comprehensive knowledge of the situation. Now, a budget is a large number, but there are lots of things in there. There's schools, roads, bridges, hospitals, all these types of things that cost. But I'll just say this. In any growing and expanding economy, there are essentially two types of benefits. There are collateral benefits, and that is the benefit we would realize because there is a new road in my village that allows me to take my produce to the market. That's collateral, right? It's not money in my pocket, but it's a benefit that inured to me. And then there's direct benefit. I think what most people are screaming about is the direct benefit. Where is the money in my pocket? And that is a non-trivial problem. I don't think there's a simple solution to that. I don't know there's any, again, people come up with these very overly simplistic solutions. So just give these people so much. And they come up with numbers and have no idea. 5 million, what? How did they get there? So all I'm saying is that if I were consulted, and I'm not, I don't speak for anyone, I would first sit down with the budget. I would go through all of it. I would do a comprehensive analysis, and then I'd be able to speak intelligently in that the numbers you just put up. At the surface, it looks really bad. It doesn't look like anybody can live on that. But that's kind of not telling the whole picture. I don't think it's a fair assessment of the budgetary process. I think it can be taken out of context when you don't have the whole story.
Noah, can I make a comment on this?
Yeah, but before you do, Professor, I just wanted you to know that whole demonstration of the numbers dovetail back to your one of your comment of fair share. The people feel, and this is, and while you're making your comment, Professor, I also need some advice from you on this. So go ahead and make a comment, and then I want to ask you some advice on it.
And I have another comment, but I'll wait till after Paul.
No, Floyd, you want to go? Go ahead.
No, I just want to caution even you, Professor. These are fair share and equitable distribution. These are very nice, fancy buzzwords. But when you peel the onion back and you drill down, who can agree on what fair share is? How do you define that? And once you start zeroing in on that, you're going to find that it's not as simple as it seems. That's all I wanted to say. So I understand what is meant. I understand the implication, right? Is that the average citizen must feel that he or she is benefiting from the nation's patrimony, right? At a larger scale. But how do you measure fair share? Is there a number when everybody in Guyana is making X? When the quality of life of all Guyanese have risen to Y level? So anyhow, those are things we have to grapple with. The point being, they're not that easily defined.
Floyd, for a man from Simpleton would say to you, fair share for him is just being able to buy his groceries, pay his rent, and live a reasonable life. That would be fair share to him. I don't think he's looking to be a multimillionaire. And I think this is one of the situation that we have in Guyana. We're trying to get numbers, Paul, Floyd, but we are not. The fact is that I believe World Bank is still showing our poverty level close to 50%. And that's something I want to touch on if we have time tonight, is getting information so we could be able to translate and talk to each other about the information that we are getting. And so, Professor, sorry we kept you waiting, but please go ahead.
I want to say a couple of things on this. Number one, since 21 years old, I've been involved in the labor movement. Latin America and the Caribbean, 25 islands in the Caribbean, from Mexico to Chile, here in the United States. And I've done 57 missions around the world giving advice to labor. Labor is very important to me. And the first thing we look at labor is the living wage. What do we mean by a living wage? That a person working and a family must be able to reproduce themselves. Housing, food, nutritious food at that, and so on and so forth, right? They have to pay the bills. Income and expenditure, it's an old theory in economics. If your income is less and your expenditure is more, there's a deficit. Now, inflation. A simple way to look at inflation, and I'm going to simplify it, is when too much money is chasing too few goods. But who has the money? Now, I like to get down. I'm a very grassroots people. People who know me over the years, whether in Latin America or around the world, they know I'm very grassroots. My mother taught me to be grassroots. We live in Rob Street. And my mother would have her umbrella, and she got her basket, and she go down to Border Market. And she spent about 2 hours there, and she come back, and she tell me everything going on in the country, and she tell me about the cost of living. I had a friend who was the executive secretary of the DLM, Terry Fort McAndrew. She used to take me every time in Guyana with a basket to say, Paul, go do your own shopping. Find out how the people are paying money. I went down to Canal and I found out that people were spending hours and hours producing agricultural products, taking it to the market, and they were not getting the price. There were more producers than purchasers because people did not have the purchase capacity. Floyd is right. It is a complex issue. In the old days, when I studied in Oxford social studies and did principles of economics and social, I went down to London on marches. I went down to TUC to do, the government then, the conservative government, were having difficult policies. What is full employment? In those days, 2% was full employment. A lot of people are unemployed in Guyana. A lot of people are underemployed in Guyana. So this is a deep problem that requires a collective civil society, private sector, and the government to be engaged. But here is my solution. And I've been saying this for years. We have to decentralize budgets and decision making about how money is used. I want to see local government becomes a reality, real budgets at the level of local government. I would like to see less politicization of people. I'd like to see people trained properly to know what is a budget. In Roraima Institute, we did citizen diplomacy with 20 school teachers. 20 school teachers. I went several times to Ghana, visited them, their homes. I went through how much money they get and what they're left with. They're left with virtually nothing. That is a fact. That is not a thing of numbers. That's reality. So I am saying there is a real problem there. I would like the leadership of Guyana, and I say the leadership, I'm speaking of the private sector, the public sector, the political leadership, and all these people, to take the wages that people have down in the grassroots and live with it for a month. And then come back and tell me what you're going to do about it and how you're going to deal with it. And if you don't know the answer, then you have to call on the society to put their heads together and their hands. And that's why I agree with you. This is not only a problem that could be solved by one party or the other party. We have to tap the talent. Let me tell you, last night, I brought to my class, I'm teaching American history from 1865 to now. And I brought to my class a good friend of mine who I'd mentored. He's now the senior researcher at the IMF. And they are developing an index, a world uncertainty index. And I read the reports. I used to monitor the World Bank and IMF for 8 years. And this is what has happened. Governments have been, they don't have the correct statistics about a lot of information about the economy of the country. There's a lag, a big lag. So I asked Hitesh, I said, Hitesh, when you have this lag, how do you deal with it? He said, we do it satellite. We go and check and see how many lantern posts has lights in a country. Because the government is not getting the statistics. So Floyd is right. And Hitesh was right last night when he said that in order to fill that gap of not having the correct information, and many times I talked to Cam de Sous, who was the managing director of the IMF, and Wolfenson, that we need some kind of initiative where we could help these governments and influence them to get and to invest in getting the correct statistics of what is happening throughout.
Thank you, Professor.
So we have a knowledge gap. And without that being addressed, we are not going to be able to formulate effective policy in political economy to address this problem of poverty. Everybody all over the world is facing them. In America, we're in a big problem with poverty, a big problem with poverty. And so we have to find a way in Guyana. And that's why I'm hoping that there could be a new dawn, a new approach after September 4th and now.
Thank you, Professor. And I want to agree with both yourself and Floyd as well, that you'll need more of a holistic approach to solve all these problems. Professor, I want to seek your advice for just 2 minutes, and this is on behalf of Globespan. Since we started this program 6 years ago, we bring on all sides. We try to bring on different opinions from all political walks and from all parts of the society. But once you start talking, if you talk bad about, if you say something that APNU supporters don't agree with, you're anti-APNU and you're pro-PPP. As a matter of fact, some of my Afro-Guyanese friends, when they get upset with me, would say, oh, you just like the PPP. And if you were to say something about the PPP that the PPP supporters don't agree with, you are a government hater. Like Amr Khan here, who's busy all night saying how much of a terrible moderator I am and I'm anti-government. Amr Khan is saying Nohar is a government hater. When you're trying to bring out issues for the people, Professor, the people, not for PPP, not for PNC, not for APNU, not for WIN or AFC, how do you advise Globespan, or how do you advise Nohar Singh in this? I mean, how do we represent the people if we can't talk about these things?
Okay. In academia, we will talk about the political culture. We have a lot of issues in the political culture, but no, Nohar, I want to take this opportunity to partly answer your question by asking your listeners to remember one of the icons of journalism and the freedom of the press. Ricky Singh just died. I met Ricky in 1969 in the Ratoon Group. Walter Rodney came to one of those meetings with us. Ricky was an outstanding man of independent thought and action. Since 1957, as a young guy, he worked with the graphic. I knew David DeCaries personally. I have a great respect for his family. And I know the editor-in-chief of Stabrook News when he was a rookie. And I trust him totally. And he's an independent thinker. So I am saying that the media has a very important role to play, and you have a very important real role to play with that. These politicians are very insecure and they find it very difficult. Sometimes, look, I'm a man, I've always been of independent thought and action. But that's not the culture of Guyana. You have to either, if you say an independent thought, then they say you're against the government or against their party. That's reality. But journalism has got to follow the example of people like Ricky Singh. You know, a president of Guyana actually took his foot and kicked Ricky Singh in the parliament building, kicked him because of independent thought.
Yeah.
You know,
can I add something to that, Paul?
I'm saying that we have to introduce a new culture in Guyana, but the media has got to stand strong. But they have to be independent. They have to be independent. That's all that's it.
Thank you, Floyd. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Give us your advice, Floyd.
Yes, I'm not a journalist nor am I a politician. I'm a businessman. And in business, there's a saying, begin with the end in mind. So this is the question you have to ask yourself, Nohar, and I think it applies to any discipline. Is what you're doing getting you closer to achieving your objectives, whatever you define those goals and objectives are? And if it is enabling you to meet your goals and objectives, the rest of it is noise. You are not doing what you're doing for likes and clicks. You're doing it because you have an objective you'd like to achieve, which is fairness, however you define it. But to me, the only measure for anyone is, and I say this to my friends, I have friends on all sides of the aisle with various opinions, and I always say, pause for a second, slow down. Is what you're doing getting you closer to your goal? And if it isn't, you probably should rethink your strategy. And that's my parting advice.
So, I just want to make a quick comment. Speaking about the political culture, look, I'm a Guyanese. I love Guyanese. And nobody gonna tell me because somebody is in the PPP, the PNC, the APNU, or whatever party, that they no longer can be my friend. I went to university with Gail Teixeira. We were in the same group together. We used to do political education. I don't agree with everything that they do, but you're not going to tell me I can't speak to her. David Hines and I marched from Buxton to Kitty, and he has views, black nationalist views that I don't agree with. No, you don't tell me David is not my friend. I can't talk to him. Are you joking? So that is the problem. We need strong people in Guyana. The media has to have leadership. Like, that's why I'm calling for interfaith leadership. We need strong leadership. Like, Martin Luther King and these guys, if they have surrendered, then what kind of world we would have had? So
Yeah.
this is the problem. And everybody wouldn't. Ricky Singh was an example. He was an icon in the media. My friend, the editor-in-chief at Stabrook News, I knew him since he was a rookie. He's a fantastic guy. I could remember one time he came to see me. I was abroad and I told the organization, I said, guys, when they are going to decide on a new chair of the election commission, send me a telegram. I'll come back in the country immediately. Well, two of them decided they didn't want to send me the telegram and they went. And they didn't know who the chair
Thank
of
you,
the election
Professor.
commission was. And
Thank you.
the editor of, he wasn't an editor of Southern News. He was a rookie. He came to see me and he said, Paul, what you think about the election of this chair of the election commission? I said, man, we put cat to watch milk.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he published that. He
Yeah.
published it. So what
Thank
I'm
you.
saying is that the answer to your answer is that we have to get strong leadership, ethical, moral, spiritual, and people who will struggle for an independent media. And we are seeing it all around the world that people make great sacrifice for an independent media. So that would be
Uh,
my advice to you. You have to stay strong.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you, Floyd. I think it's the conviction towards, to fairness for all Guyanese, and for us to be able to have the country on a trajectory whereby we all could be proud Guyanese. And I think that was my conviction. And to the issue of poverty, just one comment from Suraj Ramlakan. When we can recognize the plight of almost 60% living below poverty line, then we could start to manage, I suppose he meant manage the economy. Just a couple of additional announcements. Travelspan have two beautiful events coming up. One of it is the Caribbean Throwback, and this is with Super Bloom and also, I believe, Chris Garcia. Now, these events are put together where most of our folks, they go on a vacation, they go out to the day tours, they come back, they hang out at the pool, they're on Facebook, they don't have much more to do after that. We at Travelspan have put together events where you could have your culture, you could have your music, and you're among the people of your own likings. And Caribbean Throwback is one of them. It's on July 31st in Cancun, Mexico. And our second event is also an all-inclusive vacation. It is the curry duck versus duck curry cooking competition. That
Curry
is
duck curry.
also that is also in Cancun, Mexico, from August 7th to August the 11th. And that event has a meet and greet. It has the cooking competition escorted by the Tassa Group. It has an all-white private party in the night. And then you have the beach day with harmonia and dolak. So you're having your culture, you're having your cuisine, you're among your own people. You could still enjoy your all-inclusive vacation. You could still enjoy your tours, and you could come back to the hotel and enjoy all of these niceties that I just expressed. So call Travelspan. They have these events coming up. I believe there's only about two more rooms left for the curry duck. By the way, I know most of our viewers are Guyanese, and just to let them know, for the past 4 years, this is the fifth year for this event. And the past 4 year, Duck Curry won. So of course, Curry Duck is looking forward
Curry duck.
to taking the prize for this fifth year. Moving on with our program, viewers,
Oh,
I really want.
Noah,
Yes,
can I
sir.
just say very quickly? You got to be careful with this ad. I have eaten Floyd's cooking. That guy is dangerous. Don't make him go to the duck curry competition. You're going to win.
Well, Floyd will be happy to hear last year in Jamaica, a Jamaican came in third.
Oh,
Right,
wow.
and I do have our Afro brothers from Brooklyn that usually I think 2 years ago in St. Martin. One of them was there, and he also came in, I think, second or third. So yes, we
Wow.
do have an Floyd. We would welcome that duck curry or a
I'm
curry
gonna
duck.
sharpen my
Floyd could cook the duck
culinary
curry and
skills.
then I'm giving him ticket and I will go and represent.
Mentor.
Back to politics, guys. Back to our election. One of the things that we are facing, Floyd, and I'm also facing it in trying to access information. What is our inflation rate? What is our poverty line? Essential things that could tell us the needle is moving. But what's been, and this has been transpiring a lot, and of course it's leading to folks like Christopher Ram, GHK Lal, and all of them protesting in front of the president's home, I think, whereby they're not getting access to information. And this goes back to some of the comments Professor Paul Tennessee mentioned about getting accessibility, being able to have a media that can be able to get the numbers so that they can be able to lift it. Accountants will lift actual numbers to feel how real they are, and we're not getting that. Floyd, any comments on that? Are you familiar with that situation at all?
No, I saw the protest in the paper, just as I guess you and others have seen it. I am not sure what is it they want that they're not getting. I know I did some analysis a couple weeks ago, and I was able to get most of the stuff on the Bank of Guyana's webpage. You go to Bank of Guyana, you can go to the most of the 5 commercial banks will have an annual report. I mean, you've got to look for the data and compile it. But without knowing specifically, I haven't followed the Christopher situation, so I can't speak to that specifically. But there's lots of information out there. I worry a little bit when I hear about these things because I have been the victim of these types of outrageous comments pursuant to the audit. And it came from people who just didn't understand what an audit is supposed to be. They came in, oh, wow, he must be an Exxon's payroll. He's working for Exxon, working. And it was all inaccurate. And so I tend to pause when I hear these things and step back. There's a lot of information out there. All of it should be under the Freedom of Information Act. You should be able to get them. And if they're not getting the information they need, that's not good. I was able to do my work. I brought in a young intern who spent the summer at the bank just compiling data. So in fact, I did a whole bunch of stuff on the Dutch disease and the resource curse and all of that, which I'm gonna try to publish at some point. So there's a lot of information out there. I don't know specifically what Chris has something that he wants that he isn't getting, I suspect. But by and large, there is a lot of information out there, I think. I think there is more information out there than not. Bank of Guyana's website's got a lot of it. A lot of it.
Noah, can I make a
Concerning
comment on this?
oil and gas, all the deposits to the sovereign wealth fund, it's all there. You can see how much money was put in, all that stuff. There's a whole the sovereign wealth fund has its own financial statements there on the Bank of Guyana website. So there's a lot of it out there. I'm not prepared to say everything is out there, but lots of information is available.
Noah, can I make a comment on this?
Sure, Professor. Go right ahead.
Says this. I have said that I, for 8 years, walk across from my office on 11th R to the World Bank and the IMF on 19th Street. They do IMF does Article 4 report. They go into the country. They collect information from the private sector, from the banks, the central banks, from the Minister of Finance, and so forth, and they come back and write the report. A lot of these people have macro economic analysis. They don't have micro. And I would go over to them and ask, who is the representative for Bangladesh? Who is the representative for the desk for Ukraine? Because I am getting reports from the workers, from the labor unions, that these reports do not reflect what kind of policies and information thing. So after a period of time, I spoke to Wolfenson, I spoke to Kamdisuf, the managing director and the head of the World Bank. They said, okay, Paul, we are going to allow you to ensure that you talk to everybody at these different desks. So I go to the guys and I say, listen, when you go to the country, here is the phone number of the labor leader. This is his house number. This is the labor union headquarters. Do not come back without talking to these people because you're going to get a totally different perspective. My friend, there is a big knowledge gap of microeconomic information. And if you don't have that information, it cannot be transformed into knowledge. Sure, there are a lot of reports that are out there, but there is an information gap. I have been campaigning for this for nearly 8 years, not only at the level of the World Bank and the IMF, but also at the United Nations with financing for development. And I keep telling them, I've met all these guys, Shashi Tahur. I even had lunch with Kofi Annan, and I raised this issue with him that the UNDP and these people, that we don't have enough data on micro. It's because the grassroots are not involved. And the only way you could get them involved is at the level of local government. But these guys want to centralize everything. They don't want to give budgets to the people in local government and allow them to develop things. So there's a lot of work to be done down there. And I wish I could get. They would listen to some advice to me. I will give them some things on how they could go down to the grassroots and begin to collect and establish a new kind of information system. The truth is, my friend Christopher Ram, I know him well. He used to do free work for me for my National Workers Union. Listen, the government don't have the information. What are they going to give them? What they don't have? They don't have it. There's a gap, not only in Guyana, all across the developing countries.
Yeah. Professor, on that note there, maybe just want to take a couple of minutes and tell us what are some of your initiatives and priority for the Roraima Institute.
Exactly. Thank you very, very much. We are restructuring the board, and as you advertise for us, I'm very happy. triguyana@yahoo.com. If anybody is interested in working with us to do research, to do educational programs in Guyana, to do listening interviews, to do citizen diplomacy, especially people, young people, if they want to do research, internships, if they are interested. We are going to be working after the elections, working very hard in Guyana, trying to develop projects at different levels, projects that could be useful to educate the grassroots on how they themselves can be empowered, can be educated, and can be enthroned at the tables of governance across Guyana. So the Roraima Institute has done a lot of work. Floyd will tell you he's the one that invested for us. We did financial literacy, we did leadership seminars, we did listening interviews, we did citizen diplomacy, and we've been trying to do it in very limited means. But now we are going to develop it as a full-fledged, not only a think tank, but a do tank. It will be think tank and do tank.
You like that, Professor?
Think tank and do tank. You like that?
I like that, Professor. I like that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Good. So, Floyd, do you want to add anything to the Roraima Institute? You have been a big supporter of this organization and is certainly trying to take up some challenges that we are facing in Guyana.
Absolutely. I think the Institute has done some tremendous work. When I decided to go into banking, it became a full-time job, and I wasn't able to keep up with the work that we started. Professor Tennessee has been gracious enough to come in and take the mantle. And so I will support Professor Tennessee as best I can. But I'm no longer involved in the Institute. But I'd like to see it continue to do the work we have started.
Great. And just two more additional announcements. If you're living out of New York and you still want to have your curry powder, your fish, your meat, your duck curry, your chicken curry, you could go on buyfrom1.com. That's BUY, the number one. Buyfrom1.com. Order all your fish, all your meat, all your curry powder, all your cooked meals, and it's shipped to any state within the United States, be it California, Florida, Las Vegas, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. They have shipments that's going out every week.
Maryland. We're in Maryland.
Maryland, definitely. They have some good 7 curry that they normally ship out. So buyfrom1.com, and if you live within New York, in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, curryrotibox.com, go on their website and they will be able to deliver freshly cooked meals directly to your homes all the way out in Long Island, Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island. So those two companies, do check them out, buyfrom1.com and curryrotibox.com. We come in closing today to our session tonight. I really want to thank these two gentlemen, and I would like to ask them to give us their closing statement in terms of state of affairs and what they foresee leading up to this election. Floyd, we want to start with you.
Sure. Well, I pray for peace and tranquility post September 1. I think there will be free, fair, and verifiable elections. As a business owner with a business in Guyana, Central Georgetown, stability is important, not just for my business, but for all businesses. As you know, capital will flee if there is any level of instability. In order to attract the much needed capital, or what we call crowd-in capital, you need to have a stable environment. And anything that attempts to destabilize the environment is bad for Guyana. So in my parting words, is that I pray and hope for peace and tranquility following the elections on September 1.
Thank you, Floyd. And Professor?
No, I endorse two things that was said there. What Floyd just said, but I endorse what you said about your companies delivering great food at your doorsteps because I benefited from it. And you are aware that my daughter is a dentist and recently a member of our staff asked, because she also had food delivered at her address. She said, Dad, where is that food come? My staff wants to know. So I had to give it. So I endorse that you do ice the food real well because when it comes, it's fresh. So I hope Guyanese will support your thing. Now I have two things to say. I am optimistic that the election will be peaceful. I am optimistic that there wouldn't be hocus pocus in this election, and I look forward to us having a smooth election for what Freud says. We don't want to undermine stability, and we don't want Guyana to go totally off track. We want to push Guyana to stay on track. But I want to make one suggestion. I always like to make policy proposals. I'd like to see each Guyanese, at home and abroad, have 2 acres of land on a lease for 99 years. And they have a 3-year period to occupy and develop that land. And the state has a right to subsoil. And to those who own the lease should have a share of any wealth under the earth. Begin with the Essequibo after September 1st for fair share and deliver the land with clean hands, no bribery.
Wow. Wow.
You like
Awesome. I love that. Love that,
Good.
Professor.
That's the kind of thing I like.
Essequibo
When I
belong
talk
to
about
Guyana.
fair, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
83,000 square miles. And we have Guyanese abroad and Guyanese at home. That's its our inheritance. That is
For there's a story that hasn't been told. For 50 odd years, Guyana has lived in peace and harmony for the most part.
Yeah.
Where all over the world, people are killing each other over religion, race, ethnicity, those types of things. We're witnessing what is happening in Gaza right now. And so Guyana is fortunate in that regard that we've managed, in spite of our differences, to live side by side with each other post-independence with very little, if any at all, major fallouts. And so that's testament to the Guyanese people. And it's a good note.
I agree that we have to build on what we have. And we have a lot of positive things in Guyana. One is Guyanese culture. And what I would like to see that culture don't get totally destroyed. You know, we are Guyanese, we're a family, and we have to keep that concept going. Guyana is our homeland. Guyana is our first love, and we have to make that into a reality.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you, Mr. Floyd Haynes. Devin, bring up that picture with Professor praying for a peaceful
And fair elections and a peaceful transition.
and a peaceful transition.
Whether
Gentlemen,
to a new government or the old government or whatever.
yeah, and let's keep hope alive. Let's understand that what the cost for some of our choices, and also let us look to changes from within first so we could affect the changes on the outside. I really want to thank all of our viewers, our loyal viewers for Globespan 24/7, and we are continuing to have a very diverse conversation, a conversation that bringing in minds and thoughts and opinions from all different sides. And I want to reassure everyone that Globespan is not taking any specific side other than the issues for the people of Guyana. Thank you all so much and have a good night.
Thank you, Nohar. Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor.
Nohar. Remember, your name is Singh.